Hey guys, this is Ashley and Rest, and this is She Wolf Alchemy. Today we're talking about the big D, depression. And I said that
Yes,
really excited,
you did. You did. You was very excited for that.
almost like how
Um,
commercials do it. That's what I was gonna say.
that is exactly how the commercials do. Let's talk about depression. And then sunshines and ponies start coming out. But yeah, so we are talking about depression today. We're talking about high functioning depression, especially. But when we're talking about depression, we're talking about that persistent feeling of loneliness, loss of interest. We are talking about those physical symptoms, but also those internal symptoms as well. That loss of appetite, that inability to sleep, or maybe we're sleeping too much, struggling with just doing daily things that we normally do. So, yeah, depression overall in general. Ashley, so have you ever struggled with depression
Have I ever? That is a personal question, Rest. No. Yes. No, yeah.
on this podcast where we talked about everything
Right.
else?
Everything else. Bared my soul here. No, yeah, I have. And it's newer for me to even be able to admit that because I know at the time it was hard for me to call it that.
Mhm,
Just because I don't know, I was like, it's like, no, that's especially I guess being a social worker too,
mhm,
and always and my understanding of mental health at the time being kind of more of the extreme side of things, I guess, because this is what I'm used to seeing and working with and things. So it's like, what? I'm just things just aren't. I just and I was lit. It's funny to me now, like looking, especially like knowing the definition for real, and like looking at and like the way that I was describing how I felt.
mhm.
Like, I just have nothing to look forward to. Nothing excited me. Nothing. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I was like, well, maybe it's because I spent so much time in college and I had goals then. And now I have no goals. I don't know.
Okay.
Where does one get goals? Like, I just couldn't and like I just wasn't. And I remember a friend of mine even saying, like, I like called someone who like didn't live in my city, was like an old friend, one of them little safe little nooks
Mhm.
of people
Like,
that
'cause
you can
even
just
if you say something, who gonna know? You don't know the people I
right.
know anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Those people you can just kind of, and I just dumped, like bared my soul. And he was like, that sounds like depression. And I was like, no. You know what you're talking about. Do you take a psychology class and you know some shit? No, I'm just no, but yeah.
Sounded like my daddy anytime I bring up a very valid concern.
Right. Right. But yeah, so yeah, I have. But yeah, it was hard for me to name it because I felt like it was like when stuff was good. It should have
Yeah,
been good. I should have been happy. I shouldn't have anything to complain about, that type of thing.
yeah. I think that is sometimes the hard part of it too, when it's like, "But I should be happy. Got a job, got a place to stay, bills are okay, I'm managing, things should be good." I know we're gonna talk about this a little bit later, but also when you're in a relationship and you're like, no, they're great. Why am I should be good. It's fine. That's not what's happening here." And sometimes, your brain don't care. Sometimes your brain literally just does not care. It's still like, "Yeah, but we said now."
Mhm.
I know I've talked about this on a couple episodes. I definitely have struggled with depression. Since I was a teenager, I struggled with depression. I think back then, though, I definitely did not recognize it as depression because also just, unfortunately, in those times, you know, you like, I'm sad. And parents would be like, I pay
Mhm.
all your bills. You got no reason to be sad. And then they walk away. You're like, okay. So, so I'm not sad. Or, you'll say, I'm depressed. And they'd be like, you got no, I got real problems. Okay,
Mhm.
you got no reason to be, and then you're like, "Hey, well, I guess not." And then also, you tell friends, and we didn't have the same knowledge about mental health as teenagers do now. The Generation Zs, they know
Mhm.
all the words, all the terminologies. They use it all the time. But back then we did it, and so I think definitely when I was a teen, it was just like I'm moody.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm okay, and then sometimes I isolate, and it lasts weeks, and then it was just I'm moody. And then, of course, as time goes on, recognizing that it was depression. And I think I kind of got comfortable being able to admit that to myself when I was like in my early 20s. But I will say something that's a consistent thing for me, even now, is when I'm having like a depressive episode at that beginning, trying to talk myself out of it. Just being like, it's
Mhm.
fine. No, no, I'm just tired because, sleeping 8 hours makes you tired. So, of course, I want to still be tired and sleep more. Like,
Yeah.
and I try to convince myself out of it, and then eventually, as time goes on, I'm like, "All right, we know what's happening here. Where are our coping skills? Where are our mechanisms? Have we grounded?" And, kinda just start in that cycle all over again. I think it's an important point to mention, I do think for a lot of women of color, kinda like you said, it's almost like I feel like sometimes we're kinda taught like we don't really get to have that type of depression. It's kinda like, at least like for me, I think for a long time, I had this idea like, "Yeah, you're a black woman, it's gonna be tough. This is
Mm-mm.
what it is to be a black woman, it's fine."
Mhm.
And so I didn't feel, comfortable being vocal about it
Mhm.
and talking about it because it was just like, yeah, no, this is, especially when, if you grew up, especially when you grow up with that mentality of like, I'm supposed to be superwoman, I'm supposed to not be happy about it, and this is just life. And then having that realization of like, no,
Mhm.
no longer finding joy in things that you do and feeling like your own autopilot is not supposed to be life. That's not normal. That's not living.
Yeah. Or I think do you think also people kinda confuse it with like, "Oh, I guess this is being a grown up."
Yeah, for sure.
So
For
much to
sure.
life. Even I know for a lot of my clients, I love mentioning fun and just seeing like people be like, "What are you fun?" As if like it's this foreign, strange, like, what do you mean do I enjoy it? Like whenever I ask them, like, well, do you
Mhm,
enjoy that? Do you it's like so many people don't even consider that. Like,
mhm,
am I enjoying this? Do I enjoy things? Just in general. It's
mhm.
amazing how people can slip into
I'm in my 30s, what do you
depression.
mean?
Right.
This is
Right.
serious time. This is not time to be
Yeah.
enjoying stuff. And no, no, you're still supposed to have joy. That's still
Right.
a thing for you.
It's like, well, life is hard. I mean, it is, but some of us it's hard and we have a good time. It's like, what? How do you have fun without money? Which
Asking
is
for
a
a
valid
friend. Hold
question.
on, wait. No, if someone can provide that answer below, that would be great. Uh,
Know how you make podcasts with your friends.
First, you decide that you're entertaining. No one has to agree. No one has to agree. It's fine. It's fine. You get a mic. Decide what opinions people really need to hear that they did not ask for. Um, yeah, no, that's just how we got through it. But
But yeah, no, yeah.
yeah. But I think that goes back into the topic of like high functioning depression because I think a lot of times because we have that mindset like, no, this is just being an adult. And we think of depression as like this most severe kind. Like you can't get out of bed, crying spells nonstop. This just might be adulthood. And so then we just go through these waves and you go through them and you go through them and you go through them to either have a crisis, a breaking point, or, both, a midlife crisis. You just up and leave everything and decide to change your life regardless of how it affects your loved ones. I think we have to have like more of a conversation of that because people think because you're able to like still go on and do your things, do your duties, that like, well, I can't really be that depressed because I'm still doing stuff. And yeah, look, you can.
Mhm.
And there's
Mm.
different levels to this, but it does not mean that the level you're experiencing should not be something to address.
Mhm. And even if you can't or you're dragging or you're not lazy. That's
Mm,
the like that is such a I mean, I've heard it even said in my own family where it's like such and such says she's depressed. She ain't depressed. She's just lazy. She ain't get a job. She ain't do this. She ain't do that. Or this is, yeah, something needs to be done, but not those things, not
Mhm.
lazy. It's like it's as if I guess for so long, and especially for Black people, Black women, it's like it didn't exist. Depression just did not exist.
Mhm.
Just that's
Yeah.
all. Like, to where it's like you not yeah, no, you couldn't say it, you couldn't be it. It wasn't even something talked about. There's no way. There's no like it is very much within recent years that people have been able to acknowledge that. But I feel like it was very much a like just it's as if it was impossible.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to be fair and a little bit nerdy or whatever, the DSM and the way we diagnose things, these things are not based on these things are not based on Black people.
It's not.
These things are based on like white men. It's who a
Mhm.
lot of these statistics and things are based on, and the research that they did was done by white men on white men for white men. And
Mhm.
that just is what it is. And
Mhm.
yes, they've adapted some things and they add little paragraphs in there about, oh, make sure you're paying attention to this cultural whatever the fuck. But the DSM is not always speaking to our experiences. So there are lots of things
Yeah.
that are depression, look like depression, everything else, whether they say it in this book or not, that are like that Black people are experiencing, living through, and expressing that it's depression.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating that people when people don't have that language
Yeah.
to call it what it is and like be able to get what they need or whatever.
Yeah. It's why it's really important that, like, again, side note, sidebar, if you are going out to seek mental health care, to find somebody that's culturally competent. One of the things I remember when I was newly in the field, and it stuck with me even after I went on and got my master's, became a clinician, all of that, was how many kids I started off working in defects. That
Mhm.
was my first job. I had my internship that they tracked me, y'all. It was like, y'all work here. Afterwards, I will give you $5,000. And I was like, bet. When I sign, I just sign and you get that right away. They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, you sign for 2 years, you'll get 10. Like it was a whole thing. I was like, bet money. Um, it was a good learning experience. But one of the things I really took away from that was I can't tell you the percentage per se, but I will say it definitely felt like 80% of the Black boys that I saw in the system immediately diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder.
Mhm. Mhm.
Immediately. And that's one of those like basically like badass children
Mhm.
disorder. Like that's what that diagnosis is essentially. And then you would talk to these children and you would build relationship with these children and you're like, no, this is PTSD. They went
Mhm.
through very traumatic things. And so, yeah, they're fearful and they learn negative coping skills to keep themselves safe, but it worked. It kept themselves safe at one point in time. How come Darren gets oppositional defiant disorder, but little Timmy does the same thing? We're like, oh, yeah, well, his dad was abusive and I think he's just scared. Darren was scared too. That's
Mhm.
exactly what's happening there. So just throw that in there that sometimes if you're dealing with people who aren't culturally competent,
Mhm.
you might come in with one thing presenting in a
Mhm.
certain way because they already view you in a certain light. They already have certain opinions based on things that have nothing to do with what you're talking about and coming to them with right now. And they've already decided what they're going to do. That's
Mhm.
not to say dismiss the whole field as a general, but try to find someone that speaks your language. Try to find someone that's culturally competent. And again, I think it's always important to try to find clinicians that you feel safe with.
Mhm.
Yeah. Going back
Mhm.
to high functioning depression, and you brought it up, commercials.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, again, a lot of times with high functioning depression, it looks very different. It can look like a lot of things. Again, we're used to seeing the extreme of stuff, but there is a flip side to that. There is a side to that that is I'm out with my girls. I am at this birthday party because I promised my friend I was going to be there. I have certain duties that I said I was going to do, and I'm trying my best to come and do these duties. That does not mean the whole time I'm at the club, I am not like zoning off in my head, trying not to break down in front of the birthday girl as she's blowing out her cakes. That does not mean I'm not having an existential crisis as Usher is playing in the background. I
Mhm.
might be there, I might show up, but yeah, there's gonna be moments where I am zoning out, and my friend's gonna come to me like, "Hey, girl, you good?" I'm like, "Huh? Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine." That doesn't
Mhm.
mean I don't cry on the way home. That doesn't mean I don't then disappear for a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple whatever, because I still have duties. It's also like individuals who are parents. I am someone who is a parent who has had depression bouts while still having to parent.
Mhm.
And it was really big and important to me. Like, I didn't want my daughter seeing me cry. I didn't want that to be a thing. Like, I don't want her sitting on somebody's couch 20 years from now. Like, yeah, I just remember my mom crying all the time. Like, it was just a thing for me. It was really
Mhm.
present in my head. So it was like, okay. And when baby girl's home, that is smile on face. How was your day, Boo Bear? I'm gonna put you in a bath. I'm gonna rub you your back. I'm still gonna read you a story. Now she might have went to bed an hour earlier 'cause I did not have it in me to stretch that to 8 p.m.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't mean for I stopped doing my duties.
Mhm.
Even with things like work, I was still showing up to work. And I still remember, and I remember this so vividly. Every now and then I'm reminded of this. I remember I used to work somewhere where I had to work in the courts, and I had a court hearing the day, and I was down bad. I was really, really down bad. I got up, went to court. Court was like, I think like 9 a.m. Got to court, did the court thing, walked, didn't take the shuttle, walked back to my office, just trying to hold it together. Got to my office and then like closed my door, went under my desk and cried. And I remember like being under my desk, playing like a little bit of music in my office and
Mhm.
like crying for like an hour or two before getting up, fixing my makeup and being like, okay, now it's time to go back to pretending to be an adult.
Mhm.
I got up and did my duties. It does not mean that after I did whatever the brave face thing was, that I did not break down afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm glad you shared that because I think that's the experience of a lot of people, still having to still pushing through, doing the thing, and again, um, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's I
Yeah.
just think it's a I think it's a co I think it's an experience of a lot of people. And again, that's what makes it hard for people to admit, like, or I guess to even see when it's gotten to the point where it's like, I need help. Like, this is it. What I'm doing is not working. Like, whatever the case may be, because we're still like, but
Mhm.
this.
It's not that bad. I'm still gonna work. It's not that bad. Nobody else is seeming to notice. So, I'm just having a moment. That was my thing for a minute. It's just I'm just having a moment.
I'm just having a
I'm just
moment.
having a moment. It's my fifth one today, but I'm just having a moment. It's
Mhm.
fine.
And also, I think it's also not to say that it can't get that bad. It's we're talking about like like for there's this high functioning level, but also like yeah, a moment could be a long time, a long time, and depending on how long you let things go,
Mhm.
that I just don't feel like it or who I just drag myself to work could turn into one day you really not getting up.
Yeah.
One day, you really have missed enough days
Yeah.
that yeah, you've lost the job. And now it's hard. It's hard to find another one.
Mhm.
And you're like, I gotta sell my stuff. I gotta go out here and market myself for another
Mhm.
job. I don't have the in it's high functioning, but also like early warning or early signs, I guess.
Yeah.
Because at some point, yeah, people just trudge along, and then it could get worse, unfortunately. And yeah, I guess that's what we're talking about. Like, also ways to recognize what's going on so you can get the help that you need,
Yeah.
or it doesn't go that far, or make the changes that you need.
Well, and then also, like and sometimes it might not get to the point for you. You have to understand what it looks like for you, because it might not get to the point for you that now, yep, I'm missing so many days of work or so forth. There have been individuals who have ended their life, and everybody they know was like, "I just saw them yesterday. They were doing fine. I didn't notice a single difference. I
Mhm.
Nope, they were showing up to work, they were showing up to all the gatherings, they were at the cookout, they were at the blah, blah, blah. You have to understand what it looks like for you because there are people, especially depending on what your trauma looks like, depending on what your personality looks like, that is just going to show up and do the roles assigned to them, do the duties assigned to them. And it does not negate from the fact that this is always lurking in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
I know for me, for a long time, I carried around the idea that um, ending your life was always something I kept in my back pocket.
Mhm.
And for me, I remember talking to my therapist about it and having a conversation. I think this was like 2017 of like, look, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but it actually makes me feel better to know that I always have that option. And having that conversation with him, and he was like, okay,
Mhm.
and let's talk about how we don't think this is
Mhm.
what it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for me, that was just my mindset since I was like
Right.
14.
Yeah,
I thought
logic.
that was perfectly normal
Yeah,
to
you're
have
like, "Well,
that. I'm
I've
like,
got it all figured out."
like, doesn't everybody have a plan B? They're like, yeah, usually it's living. But for some
Yeah.
reason, you seem to have thought this is a normal plan B. Let's talk about that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It can also look like, oh my gosh, it's again, the putting it this way, I know it sounds crazy, but honestly, being a therapist and being all into other people's brains,
Mhm.
it gives you such an interesting like perspective on people and yourself.
Mhm.
And so there are things that I recognize in my clients' thoughts of even just maybe not even want to die, but just being like, I don't want to be here. I remember days I used to just wish for just a coma. You
Mhm.
know, I'd be like, I don't want anything extreme. I'm not trying to die. Just can it just stop? How do I just make it all stop and I could just sleep? I remember just having those of just like, and I have, clients who express it now where, at first it starts off like, yeah, they have some suicidal, but when we really talk, they're like, they just want things to end, you know? And in life, there really isn't this like pause button. And I think so many of us need it anyway. Like, we really need space to just figure things out sometimes, especially when it comes to trying to sort out our feelings. Like, am I depressed or does my job suck? Am I miserable or is the like what's going on? But there's so much coming at us all the time. I think,
Mhm.
it's hard to just, what is this? And it's like, and fucking work. I think I just get
Look,
because it's one of those wheels, I guess, that keeps turning
mhm.
regardless of what's going on. And it's so frustrating because I really wish that as a society, people all could be able to just hit a pause on it and
Yeah.
not have your whole livelihood threatened to keep this damn company making money. Like,
I
can
want
I
y'all to
think,
utilize FMLA so much more.
please?
I want
Yes.
y'all to utilize FMLA so much more.
Yes.
If your company has it, utilize it.
Yeah, and don't let them try to tell you you can't. Don't let anybody discourage you from it. If you need it, take it.
Mhm. Throw words in there like, well, my lawyer said. I'm so quick to not know the law and be like, I don't know. When I talk to my lawyer about this, I'm gonna let them CC you. But my lawyer had told me that y'all kind of have to. I don't be knowing what I'm talking about.
My,
In the
I
back of
love
my head,
it.
I'm always like, I'm gonna hit up Ray when I leave and just,
Just running by him. I know some lawyers. I feel like this is good.
yeah, I know a couple lawyers. I'm gonna,
But for real, like, but yeah, no, because I hear people being discouraged from that all the time from using their FMLA. Take the dang time. Like, it's there, it's offered. And if you really are in that space where you're just, it's not it. Going there is making it worse than if you could just be still.
yeah,
Look into it.
yeah. And I know for so many people, it is like, I don't work for joy. Like I work because I want a certain lifestyle and it allows me to afford to do things I want to do on my time off. And if you are one of those people, that's great. That's great. But also recognize when you're not.
Mhm.
Some of us just aren't. Some of us just aren't. And that's okay. Recognize that though.
Mhm.
Because I feel like also sometimes I talk to folks and there's this idea of like, well, work is supposed to be miserable. And I'm like, well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have. There are some people, and I'm not saying like, yes, every day should be sunshine and joy, but like
Some people like their jobs.
some people like some people like don't hate it at the very
Mhm.
least.
Mhm.
At the very least. I
Mhm.
had I remember when y'all know I talk about this. I will leave a job so quick. I will. The minute I figure out a way to, I will leave.
Mhm.
But I will. And I remember like being at a job. where I had to convince myself to go in the morning. Like, I remember those days of, like, being in bed, hitting snooze for, like, the 20th time, and just
Mhm.
being like, "You have to make money. Like, what you gonna do?" Like you said, my sick days, I can't remember sick days. Which grandparent did I say is not still alive? Like, I was just trying to figure out ways and
Mhm.
having to have that conversation with myself of like, "Okay, girl, it's time to quit. It's time it's time to start putting in applications somewhere else because you should not have to start setting your alarm at 4 AM so you have enough time to convince yourself to get to work by 8."
Mhm. Girl, I feel you. I and again, and so with when it comes to recognizing stuff, so because I had a, instant like that when the first job I got when I relocated, and
Mhm,
it was I hated it. I got to the point where I hated it, and I had never really hated a job before. I'd always, for the most part, been someone who liked going to work, doing
mhm.
doing what I did, but I hated that job. And I
Yeah.
got to the point, girl, it was hard for me. And I was darn near in tears in the morning, like having to get up and go. And I was like, this ain't it. Like, I cannot do this. And so, but I was able to recognize like what was going on and was like, okay, how can I change this? Because I gotta go.
Mhm.
you know. And I started getting up. It's funny you say at 4 to get up to convince yourself. I started getting up at like 4:30 so that I could do other stuff before work. Because I
Mhm.
felt like if the first thing I do, and I'm still that way, if the first thing I do is get ready to go to work, that's not how I want to start my day. I
Mhm.
want to do stuff that I want to do first thing in the morning. And so, I set this whole elaborate ass morning routine for myself so I could read because I like to read. I was gonna run outside because I like being outside and running. And I was literally doing it for my mental health. And that routine got me to the end of that dang year or at the end of my contract
Yeah.
because Lord have mercy.
Can I say though, in hindsight, you had a lot of great stories from that job.
Yeah, that place was wearing me out. And I just, yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, recognizing like, hey, but also because I had when you get the experience of like, hey, this is how, notice when you feel okay. When you're like, this is my equilibrium. This is how I am when I feel good.
Yeah.
You can notice when it's off and it's like, this isn't it. I know this isn't me.
Yeah.
I know this is something else going on here. I know I'm off. What do I need to do? How do I get me back on track? Because I know there's something. And just like those things that I mentioned, like me just getting up and getting outside and doing things. Honestly, y'all, the things that are probably the last thing you want to do when you're feeling depressed are things that actually end up helping you to feel better.
Yeah, yeah.
It is. It's when you like in the pits and someone's like, take a walk, express gratitude. Kiss my ass.
Girl.
I don't want to do none of that stuff. I'm tired as it is. It's
As
exhausting.
therapy, we hear this all the time because people wanna come
Mhm.
in and they're like, "Just give me the tools, just give me the skills." And you be like, "A warm bath,
Deep breaths.
meditation," and they be like, "I gotta find this on Pinterest." So, but a big part of it is like, "Okay, let's do the work through
Mhm.
how we even got here. Why we keep having this pattern, this cycle? What is our pattern, our cycle? Now I can give you these tools and so forth, so then we can make changes, so we can have other alternatives and things that help us get back to that center, that baseline. Because a lot of those tools are to help you get back to baseline, so you can think clearly and make a decision to not repeat a negative pattern. Therapy is not a magic wand. A lot of therapy is recognizing patterns
It is. It
and
is.
then deciding, consciously deciding, I'm not going to do that pattern anymore. And what are my other options that I can do?
Mhm.
And I just want to say that because sometimes people be like, and now I got depression. So you could just pull a rabbit out of your hat. And I'm like, that's not helpful.
No. And the tools now, steps and things, right, is to create a space for you to be calm enough for your
Mhm.
nervous system to chill out so you can think clearly and do what you need to and recognize what's going on around you.
Regulating your nervous system
Mhm.
is a
Mhm.
huge, huge part of it.
It's such a I really we don't go into the no, because
No, do. I
I
love
was just
it.
because I was gonna say like I really wish that we did pay more attention or talk more about like mind and body connection instead of
Mhm.
like stop acting like they're two different things. Like there is so much research that shows that what we do to our body does impact our mental health and our mood and all these other things.
Yeah.
I mean, literally holding a smile on your face can help improve your mood.
Mhm.
Who knows
Yep.
why, but we've been given these bodies to
Well,
work with.
I think about the different research that we have on like water and plants. They have done lots of studies where they literally have plants, same plants taken from like what is it called when you populate or you take I don't know, same
Mhm,
plants, same everything, put them in
mhm,
water, and then they just like place them. They're like, okay, this plant with the A on it, I'm gonna say I love you to it every day, right before I water it. This plant with the B on it, I'm gonna say I hate you every day before I water it. And this plant over here, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just water it. And time after time, research has shown that plants that have the positive affirmations grow more, are healthier, last longer. So do you think the things that you are saying to yourself, the things that you are allowing the people in your life to say to you, do you think those things don't have an effect on you? For real, for real?
and and double time on the things that people around you are saying, because at some point, I don't think people recognize like you've adopted these people's voices and you're just
Mhm.
spinning them in your head even when they're not around. That's not your voice.
That is one of my favorite exercises to do as a clinician is okay, let's check in on who is your inner critic? Because is that even you? Because a lot of times it's not them. A lot of times, like, yeah, I have a loud inner critic. No, you just repeated mama's words. You have a loud memories of mama. That's not even what you think about yourself. That's what mom had told you since she was 6.
Girl, as a side note, literally, and whose voice is that? And she didn't want to say it. She was like, I don't know. I was like, you don't know? We don't know.
Mhm,
Sure. I think you know. And she was like, I don't know. I said, well, it's your parents' voice because
mhm.
they have parented you with guilt and shame. And if they weren't your parents, we would call it emotional manipulation.
Woo. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Whose voice is it? That is a good, and yeah, differentiate yourself from those things. That's not you.
Mhm.
You don't have to talk to you that way, and likely it's not your voice. You didn't wake up and just be like, "I'm gonna be mean to myself."
Yeah.
Goodness.
I don't particularly like myself. Why?
Mhm.
Who told you not to like yourself? You said you value loyalty, and you're a loyal person. You said you value people who do what they say they're going to do, and you do what you say you're going to do. So why don't you like you?
Mhm.
And yeah, sometimes that's also partners. And check who you got in your circle. Friends
Right.
as well too. Y'all need to have supportive friends, and that's not to say your friends won't tick you off sometimes. Sometimes
Mhm.
they won't let you down. They're humans. That is going to happen. But
Mhm.
me and Ashley have talked about this before. We have amazing friends right now.
Mhm.
We have great friends in our circle.
Mhm.
Somebody get a good partner. We are like, yes, them for president.
Mhm. It's all love and good vibes.
I love it. Good
When when
vibes.
people are telling me like, "Yeah, I argued with my friend," I'm like, "Argued? I've never really argued with a friend. Like, really, I haven't. I've had like, we don't agree on this.
Mhm.
Okay.
There's a
That's
lot
kind of
of,
it.
there's a lot, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways.
I go on my day. I'm not about to sit around and be mad, and we're not about to do like it's just I don't get it. Yeah. Yeah, y'all please assess your circles and yeah, get some better friends. Like, are you surrounded by shitty humans? Are you surrounded by people who don't listen to you, who
Mhm,
belittle you, who make you feel like you too much all the time or are using you?
mhm. But also check in with yourself on why you want these people to stay in your life because some of us are like, we can tell other like, yeah, they did this did this thing and this bad thing, and we can recognize that. And then when people try to point it out, we're like, well, no, 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 no. Are you trying to keep these people in your life until you can convince them to love you? Because that's a thing that I'm starting to see a lot of people that are holding on to terrible people or terrible friends, terrible partners, terrible, they know they deserve better, they know, but they are like, if I finally just love them enough, they'll love me. And they're not.
Mm-mm.
You're not gonna love them into loving you.
Not possible.
They're either gonna love you or they're not. They're gonna do right by you or they're not. Um, Coding their hate, their disgust, their bitterness, their anger, their lack of loyalty, um, coating that in honey and sugar ain't gonna make the wound any less deadly.
Mhm.
Sugar and wounds cause infections.
And going through stuff like that day in, day out with people close to you, it can drag you down.
Mhm.
It can drag you down, like truly. And I think we don't like. I've seen a lot of women coming out, and I hate to say women specifically because it does happen to men, but I specifically have seen a lot of women go through where they're coming out of these extremely toxic relationships, and it's like they thought they just kind of snapped back or something, or like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
you spent 3 years in this type of environment.
Mhm.
Your nervous system is racked. Like,
Yeah.
whether that comes out looking like depression or anxiety or PTSD or what, you spent this extended period of time under these circumstances. And yes, again, like it's like the perfect storm.
It's hard to heal on the battleground. You gotta take yourself out the battle.
You really do.
So I think one of the things though that makes it going back to the depression, I think one of the things that makes it really hard to get the help search that we need is one, like we said, kind of first we got to admit it,
Mhm.
but two, there is still some stigma around it. And I feel like it's particularly with men, there's still some, I feel like a lot of the women we are now being like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm going to therapy. And the men are coming, y'all. They are coming. They're doing great. We're doing some great work in here. I'm getting a lot of male clients lately. We're doing awesome, awesome work. Okay, so they're coming. But there is a lot of still, I think, stigma around it, and there is a lot of kind of belief like, oh, I can fix this by myself. Yep, sometimes self-help books are great. Yep, sometimes doing a meditation by ourselves is great. But there's also healing in being heard. There's
Mm.
also healing in finding a safe place to express ourselves. Sometimes that safe space is with new friends, new partners. Sometimes it's new places, but also sometimes that's in therapy. There's only so much a book can do because also books can't call you out on your stuff. And sometimes we need to be called out on your stuff. Podcasts can't always call you out on their stuff. Sometimes we need to be called out on our stuff. Because sometimes we sit up here and we say, I want to be better. I want to do better. And then we don't do the things that we know will make us better. We hold on to the negative things that are hurting us. And that book is not going to sit there and tell you,
We've been doing this for 3 months now.
hmm,
Book not gonna say that. But heavy on the it's healing to be heard. Like, I love it. It's so simple because it's so real. Like, you, like, even to experience saying certain things to someone and them not shrinking away and them being there to be there for you again next week. Like, there's something about that because people do tend to, say things to their therapist they would never, and you might think, well, me and my homegirl close, me and my man close, me and my what? Mm-mm. Yeah, and that's
mhm,
why you not telling them. you,
yeah,
that's why you haven't said out loud whatever that thing is.
yeah.
And it is helpful to one, get it out, hear it for yourself, but then also be affirmed and validated.
Mhm.
If that's what needs to happen, like, it's be empathized with, like, it's that is a part of that healing as well.
Safety is so important to healing. I need a safe space to heal. I'm even when you were talking about like I can talk to my homegirls about look, half my homegirls are social workers or clinicians in some matter, and they're great for a lot of topics.
Mhm.
They're great for a lot of topics. There are certain people I know that if I'm going through a, am I tripping or is this man testing me that I can't call? They'll get us all in trouble.
Mhm.
They're gonna get everybody's license on the line. There's certain friends I just can't do that with. There are certain friends that I know that if I want to even be softer and vulnerable with, I know that is just not their strong suit. Whole clinicians out here, but because of our dynamic with one another. And you gotta take things like that into consideration. Even you're like, yeah, my homegirl give great advice. Okay, this is not even about advice. Therapy is not about advice. It's about having a safe space to explore those things that we need to explore. And I think it's worth giving that a shot. And I know it sounds like it. We're like, hey, we're therapists, so we're gonna promote therapy.
Nah,
But also, we're therapists who have also been in therapy. Also,
absolutely.
I personally don't believe in ever going to therapists who have never been in therapy. That's just my own personal belief.
I feel like yeah, how can you tell someone to submit to the process and you don't trust the process?
You don't trust
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, is that once we get to the fact that we are able to admit, like, okay, this might be depression, this is more than me having a moment,
Mhm.
is doing the work to get the help. I think a lot of times we try to skirt around the real help, skirt around the real work. And then also, again, I think some of the hard part is, and then we kind of touched on it a little bit, is we don't want to let some of this stuff go. We want
Mhm.
to heal without changing.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
For some people, it's that high power job that's killing you. You like, I like making this much money. I like having the popularity that comes with this. I like having the status, or it might not even be all that. It might be whatever it is. And when you gonna talk about it, they're gonna be like, you can't stay here. Not
Mhm.
like this. For some of us, we know it's that person. We know it's that person. You know it's them. And
Mhm.
you're like, I will do all the works. We can deep dive into my childhood. Let me talk to you about my daddy. But
Mhm.
we don't want to let go of that. We don't want to let go of that man or that woman. It's the I want to change, but I don't want to do the work. Or I know you're gonna take away my favorite toy, even though it hurts me. Let me keep my toy.
Mhm.
Yeah, so all of that, let's say we doing the stuff we're willing to, we're in a point we can admit that this might be what it is. We're willing to get the help. We're now like, okay, I'll make the changes, I'll do the stuff. Um, and after doing the stuff and after doing the changes, I do think it's important that we bring up that for some people, talk therapy is not enough.
Mhm.
Sometimes depression is situational. Sometimes depression is based on things that are happening in our life, things that we're going through and experiencing. But sometimes it is a biological thing. And talking it through can kind of help a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily get you the relief that you're looking for. And then medication might be the next step, and it's brought up. And there's still a lot of people that's very, very resistant against medication.
Mhm.
Um, and I get it. I definitely get it. I definitely grew up with a father that was like, the government decided to put
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
much had thoughts on the health system in America. I have thoughts on it as well. Um, but it doesn't negate against the fact that sometimes that medication is needed and there is nothing wrong with it if that's what you need to help you get through this.
Mhm. Mhm. And also, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's that even it's hard to even begin to do the work if you're just not functioning well. Like
Mhm.
if you're that low or that deep in depression, and that medication helps to get you to a level where you can start to process and work through some things and all that. And it doesn't have to, for everyone, it doesn't have to be always or forever, but
Mhm.
it may be needed to get you to that place of where you can function enough to start doing whatever it is that you need to be doing or changing or whatever the case may be, healing from. So yeah.
And I love that you brought that up because yeah, sometimes the healing don't ain't gonna stick because yeah, we got
Yeah.
a whole bunch of
Because we're just
biological stuff going on that has to be
yeah.
dealt with first.
We're too wrapped up in that, yeah, to even be able to. Because I've seen people where it's like, "Oh, I was thinking about cutting myself, and I realized I was just on my period." I'm like, "Oh, no, it's not
Mhm.
supposed to go that low. That
Mhm.
is a dangerous level of low that we don't need you at.
Mhm.
Let's look at some others,
Yeah.
like, because I need you functioning up here so that we can just, like, get through some things. So yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely worked with individuals who, like, again, we were doing all the skill learning, all the processing, all the deep diving, and it wasn't until they got on medication, they were there like, "You know, how you told me I can, like, challenge a thought, I can do that now."
I can do that now. Yeah.
You know, I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's what I was saying."
Mhm.
Where I can get you can get the information, but I just don't have the ability to perform it, to use it because my nervous system
Mhm.
is all the way up here, or all the way down here.
Mhm. Mhm.
So definitely, I think it's something that we do need to have more education on. Understand, like you might need that, and there's no shame in that. Like Ashley said, you don't have to be on it forever. And then also, if we are on medication and we are resistant to it, please stop taking yourself out medication before talking to your doctors first.
Mhm.
Depending on the medication are on, there can be
Mhm.
so many side effects that you wouldn't even think of that's related to the way that you decide to go cold turkey when you was on 90 milligrams of blank, 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 and then you just decide, like, "Imma just stop," and you've been on that for, like, a year and a half. Medication, we're saying if you need it, definitely consider it. I think it can be a really good thing. I think it's definitely a blessing for a lot of people, but also at the same time, remember, it is still biology. You know how in science class, biology class, you was mixing chemicals and things happen? That is what is going on with your body. So please talk to your doctor before you start taking yourself off stuff and messing with your biology.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now that we talked about it, so we're able to recognize it, we're able to realize what it is, we're willing to get the help, we're willing to do the changes, willing to do the work. If we need to add medication to it, willing to have that conversation and consider that. Now let's talk about some of the things that go back into getting back into your daily life. Some of that is also like dating. Dating with depression, this is a topic I feel like I haven't heard a lot of people touch on. And this is something I know I definitely went through. The last time I had a really major depressive episode, I was actually dating somebody at the time. And
Mhm.
that was the first time that I was actively like, oh, I had a person. And I did not know what to do because usually I had to deal with my depression alone. Usually, seeing people casually, so I can just kind of fall off, whatever, whatever. And they also did not know what to do about it, and I didn't know what tools to give them to let them know what to expect or how to best support me in that as well. And it
Mhm.
was a very difficult time for me, and I'm sure it was a difficult time for them. They're Black right now, so I can't ask, but I'm sure it was a very difficult time for them as well. I think one of the biggest things is, 1, how to let someone know how serious it is. I think I did not do a very good job at that. I know for me in the particular situation I'm thinking of, like, I remember being like, "Yeah, I've been feeling really depressed lately, so, I'm just going through stuff." And they was just like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And then that was my conversation, and I kinda just expected them to take that and be able to run with it. And they thought that was just one of those casual things that people say, like, "Yeah, I'm sad." That's what they thought I was saying, like, "Yeah, I just been sad, that's why I haven't been as responsive."
Mhm.
And the way that that trickled into and that really, really affected us, really affected our relationship because now I have insomnia. I'm not sleeping. It's now affecting my ability to enjoy things. It's now affecting my ability to tolerate them. It's now affecting how much I can do. And they looked at it as me rejecting them. And I did not explain to them in better terms that, like, no, this is just me going, this has nothing to do with you. Sometimes I think when people are going through depressions, it kind of creates this weird area for people on both sides. I think for one, the person who's dating the person of, do I stick it out with this person
Mhm.
and help them through, but also the level this is now affecting me.
Mhm.
On the other side of that, for the other person, there is this, how much do I want to reveal to this person without causing them too much concern, without having to go through maybe some things that they don't know about me, or I don't really like talking about, but also, can I maintain this relationship when it's hard for me to take care of myself at this point? And how
Mhm.
do I balance between both of those things?
I think with that, it's like, and you're, it's also hard for people to kind of know what to do. I mean, in
Mhm.
general, a lot of people don't know how to offer people comfort, but also kind of like your point, a lot of us don't know how to articulate what we need at times. But when I think about it, it's like it should be something I think in dating or well, if you're in a relationship or what have you with someone that you can and would want to be able to talk about, especially if it's going to be a thing.
Mhm.
I don't want to say it's gonna be if it yeah if it's gonna be a thing like if it's happening right if it's happening it's a thing, but you want to be in a safe space where it is something that can be discussed and not something that sends like the other person into like a frenzy or a shutdown or think you're gonna be a burden. But also I think while you were saying I was trying to think if I've ever dated anyone who like I knew was depressed or who's but because I had to think about it, and I was like, I think because the issue more would come for me with dating people of like, okay, but you're not doing anything about it. Like I can be here for you, and I can do, and I'll listen, and but like, are you trying to work on this, or is this just this is and some people that I've come across, it's like, well, this is just me now.
Mhm.
No, no, you could do something different or whatever. But again, it's harder to even because kind of like you were talking about, like going like riding through it with someone. It's harder to ride it through with someone when you're not like committed to them on the front end,
Mhm.
because
Even
no,
on the back end, I think it's hard.
it's hard. No, it's hard. But
Mhm.
I guess because I think about me, I'd be more willing when it's like we're in a we once we locked in, ain't no switching
I
up. Okay.
know, and I'm
So
not. I am not.
so yeah. But
I
still,
always got
no,
an
it's
exit plan, just know.
oh my gosh.
Don't walk
But it was
into
still
relationships with exit plans. Sorry, go ahead.
but it would still matter whether or not that person is trying this. Like I can be I want to be here, it's empathetic here, all this but also like can we try? And I get that it's hard to try when you're in the depths of but and I think that's
It becomes a tricky
it's a
thing.
thing. It's a tricky thing.
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side, I too have been in a relationship with someone who went through like some depression and same thing. And I did have to decide to walk away because it had been a year of like, you're not doing anything though about it. Like, and I'm trying my hardest to give you as many resources. I'm trying my hardest. Like, do you want to try therapy? Want to try talking about it? Do you want to exercise? Do you want me to, we have to do something though
Mhm.
besides sink on this ship together. I
Mhm.
can't keep the ship afloat by myself.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's hard because nobody wants to say, like, I left them because of their depression. It feels like
Yeah.
a very abandoning. It feels very, but also if you ever been a person in that situation, it also kind of feels like you're abandoned as a partner.
Mm, mhm.
And at some point, it's like, yeah, what can I tolerate? And I always think that's the best way to look at it. Be honest with yourself about what you can tolerate
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it can roll into resentment real quick. That's again, I have been the person on the other side. So I get it.
Mhm. Mhm. Also, sometimes, going through depression can cause you to make poor decisions and bring people into your life that should not be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Home to things that you shouldn't because now this person has become your coping skill.
Can we touch on depression and sex as a coping skill? Like,
Mhm. Mhm. That is a real thing.
that's a real thing. And if you're wondering, like, I don't know if I'm using sex as a coping skill. If when you get mad, the first thing you want to do is have sex and you want to call that person. If you're sad and then you think, well, maybe
Mhm.
if I call them, they'll come over. If
Mhm.
any emotion you have, your full status, maybe if I was just like call somebody real quick and come over,
Yeah.
probably utilizing it as
Mhm.
a coping skill.
Mhm. 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 Yep. Trying to screw your way through things is not usually going to help you. But right, you're right. That is such a big. Le- mm, I would say I've always tried to be very cautious about what I tie sex to because I want it to be fun and enjoyable. I
Mhm.
don't. I always tell people I don't do angry sex. I'm not arguing. I'm not having sex with you. I don't like you right now because I
Mhm.
don't want it tied to unpleasant things. But I was like, I remember dating someone where I literally had to say, sex is not a coping skill. What are you doing? And he was like, well, now I feel judged. Well, sir, you just dumped all this depressive information. I mean, like, this man dumped, like,
I
trauma, trauma,
remember.
sadness, sadness, and then went and got up to go take his clothes off. What? What?
What is happening here in real time?
What is happening? And I'm just supposed to go on with this plan? Like, please get some assistance. But yeah, I myself have entertained things that I would not have if I was in a better state. And it has been interesting. Like, I've looked back at pictures and been like, oh my God, girl, you were so sad. What were you doing? You know, trying to, what the fuck were you doing? I don't even fuck. I'm just doing stuff.
Just out here doing stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
Looking for
Hoping something
comfort.
sticks.
Looking for comfort, looking for something. I don't
Trying to
damn
find
know.
joy. Trying to find
Friend.
joy in it. Yeah, I think of that too, especially with people who like then keep upping the ante in their sex life because
Mm,
it's like I'm not getting joy for it. They're the way I used to. So let me try this. Let me explore that. And let me explore that. And let me explore that. And let me explore. And then it kind of just goes to this level that they are like ashamed to even talk about. And that's not to say,
and that's not to
like,
kink shame,
yeah, kinks are great. Um,
but
fetishes are great.
also,
Can't fake them. But there are some people who
I mean,
dive
yeah,
into that territory because
yeah.
it's kind of like with drugs, where there's a certain level of I can no longer get high off this hit. So now I have to up it.
Mhm,
And if you treat sex like a coping scale, like an addiction, it can have that same effect.
mhm.
That might also be a sign of depression. I don't
We
know.
yeah. There are lots of things that don't look like that are, like, so normalized in
Mm,
our culture that it's easy for it to not but it is. It's easy to get away with it and it not be called depression when it is.
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. I know somebody who, like, I remember the time I realized I was just like, "Oh, you're depressed." It comes off as anger. It comes off as bitterness. 'Cause you're
Mm,
sad. You don't
mm.
find joy in things anymore. You think sadness is a weakness though, so you decided to revert it to aggression. But that's sadness, that's anger, that's depression.
Mhm.
They can look like a lot of things.
That's true. That irritability too, like that is a symptom of depression. Just being irritated all the time and just it's like everything chafes at you.
Mm. So, yeah, bear aware of what's going on in that. I do want to say though, I do think if you are out here dating and you're somebody who just chronically deals with depression, maybe you have depressive cycles every now and then, every couple years, you know that's a thing. I personally think it's always best to when we are dating and we're dating for serious commitment to be open and honest with the people about it. And for some people, they're like, don't tell them because then they might not want to commit. But do you really want to trap somebody? That's not fair. And I don't think you deserve a love that you don't have to manipulate. They also deserve to love people that don't manipulate them.
Yes, agreed. Yes, and allow people to make their own decision. And if that decision means that they're not with you, that is okay. You would much rather someone who is ready for the task. So stop trying to convince folks. But yeah, if you're hiding parts of yourself or not, that's not gonna serve you well in the long run. And you're right. Yeah, I feel on the other side of things, it feels it's manipulative. It's okay. It's also okay to admit if you don't think you can handle something. If you're not in
'Cause
a place,
look,
that's okay.
and again, that's not to say you gotta tell people on your first date or whatever, but I do think
No.
before you realize things are getting serious, that would be the time to make sure it's something that's known, make sure it's something that's brought up, and let them know kind of what that might look like. So they know what they're getting into. That might be something that comes up, and I just want to make sure that you know that. I don't want to blindside you. This is what it looked like for me in the past. Because again, I think sometimes we bring that up and people are just like, yeah, we all get depressed. And then they kind of just move on. And then now you are withdrawing, you are isolating,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
are struggling to get out of bed. And they're like, what is this? I thought you just meant you be like sad sometimes and then you like roll up. I didn't know. You like,
Mhm.
you gotta go to the therapist now, or you gotta do whatever, whatever now.
Mhm.
Make sure people know what they're getting into, and I think that's fair for both parties.
Agreed.
So, hopefully, guys, this episode has been helpful for you. Our biggest thing is do, like a lot of our episodes, check in with self. Be willing to make those changes to get back to your level of happiness. Living on autopilot does not have to be what quote unquote adulthood is or what adulthood feels like. There's joy in adulthood, there's happiness in adulthood. No longer finding joy or finding things you're interested in is not supposed to be your new norm. Well, we thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. Follow us also on Thread. It's cool. It's popping over there. I actually really like it. And be sure to give us a review wherever you're listening. If you need to reach out to us, you can email us at shewithalchemypodcast@gmail.com. All right.
Mhm.
Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.